Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the What Are Peer Support Services Across the Lifespan webinar. I'm Yvette Kelly, the Director of Children's Services and Healthcare Innovation at NYU McSilver, and along with my colleague Rita Cronice, who you will hear from shortly, I am also the co-director of the Peer Support Services Technical Assistance Center. And so I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. Happy that you can join us. Let me just So just to kind of give you a quick introduction to myself, just so you know a little bit more about who's on the call today. So I've been a licensed mental health counselor for 17 years and have over 25 years experience working with children and families across a variety of settings, to include overseeing a children's behavioral health clinic, especially during a time when the clinics were undergoing major restructuring. And so that's just a little bit about myself. We're also joined by a number of our partner colleagues today from both the Academy of Peer Services and Families Together in New York State. Over the course of the initiative, PeerTAC will also be partnering with some peer-run and peer-savvy organizations. And today we have the Wellness Collaborative of New York, IPA, with us, as well as Baltic Street and the New York Peer Specialist Certification Board, who has joined our presentation today. So we're excited to have them. Our presentation today will be recorded, and the slides and recording will be made available and posted to our landing page, peertac.org. And so you should probably see those available within the next day or two. And if you want to refer back to them, you'll be able to access them there. We do have a pretty packed agenda for today, but we do anticipate perhaps maybe being able to answer a couple of questions. So we are just going to ask that if you could chat in your questions along the way, and if you have any for our presenters, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as time allows. In the event we're not able to get to your question today, I do want to encourage all of you guys who've joined us to return next week for our consultation call, in which we'll have our presenters on the call again, who will be able to answer some of the questions that you may have. Okay. So it's also, it's always a great idea for us to kind of know who's joined us on the call today. So we are going to ask you to participate in our poll question by letting us know what your role is and in what capacity have you joined us today. So if you could just take a few minutes to answer that poll question, we would appreciate that. All right. You get a moment, we'll see the results. Again, if you're just joining us, you can just let us know who is on the call today. Great. Okay. So it looks like we have a diversity of staff here. And again, thank you all for joining. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join the presentation today, and hope that the information presented is helpful and informative to your role. Okay. And so with that, just wanted to talk briefly and just kind of give a reminder in terms of our PeerTAC mission, and why we're here, why we're doing the work that we do. So PeerTAC was really established to deliver training and technical assistance and consultation to mental health organizations, serving people across the lifespan, so including children, youth, and families, adults and older adults, living with mental health conditions. And so our focus is on really the expansion of peer support services within mental health organizations. And so as we go through our presentation today, you'll hear from a number of presenters about what peer supports are, and the implications that has as we work on implementing these services in mental health organizations. So here's our objectives for today. We're going to explore the differences between natural peer support and peer support services. We're going to describe what peer support services can look like in clinic programs. We're going to talk about the distinctions between services available for all peer types, so youth, families, adults, and older adults. And then we're going to talk briefly just about the credentials required to become a peer specialist. And so with that, I am going to pass it over to my co-director, Rita.
Thank you so much, Yvette. And welcome everyone. My name is Rita Cronice, and I am a person with lived experience of a major health condition. I'm the co-director of Peer Tech, and I also have well over 20 years of experience, both in natural peer support and providing peer support services. So Peer Tech, again, is a collaboration between the Academy of Peer Services, which is, for those that are not familiar, the training and testing program for the certification of adult peer specialists. And this year I'm celebrating 10 years as an instructional designer with the Academy and the coordinator of the virtual learning community. We're going to, in a moment, be asking that's me, I'm going to be asking the rest of our peer staff with Peer Tech to introduce themselves. And I have the pleasure of sharing a video recorded from my colleague, Matthew McDonald. He couldn't be here today because the Academy is today releasing, they're in the midst of releasing specialty tracks, 5 specialty tracks for training of peers who are supporting older adults, people in crisis, people involved in criminal justice, people who are working on health and wellness concerns, and supervision of peer specialists. And before we start the recording for Matthew, I just wanted to mention that he talks about something in his video called the clinician's illusion. And if you're not familiar with that, I just wanted to mention that it is, there were, in 1984, 2 researchers named Cohen published a research study on the bias that clinicians have about people's ability to get better after having an episode of mental illness. And the clinicians tended to be more pessimistic about the prognosis because they only saw people at their worst and not back in the community after they had gotten better and were living their lives. So in a nutshell, that's what Matthew is talking about when he talks about the clinician's illusion. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew McDonald, and I'm a New York certified peer specialist who is working for Rutgers University's Academy of Peer Services and also specifically the project of Peer Tech. I would like to tell you some of my story, including a bit about the intersection of peer support and clinical services in my personal and professional journey. It begins in 2012. When I was struggling profoundly in a college setting with the onset of mental health symptoms, including depression and some precursory psychosis. By the beginning of 2013, after having tried unsuccessfully to live with extended family, I faced my first psychiatric hospitalization. Over the 5 years from 2013 to 2018, I found myself hospitalized a total of 15 times, at an average length of stay of about 10 to 12 days. I learned hard lessons about the system over that course of time, including the fact that most of the clinicians I encountered consistently saw me at my worst. I have heard this cumulative experience of seeing people at their worst to be called the clinician's illusion. But there was another illusion at play, because not only were the clinical staff seeing me at my worst, but I was also seeing many other people, my peers, at their worst. I was not regularly seeking support unless I was forced to by the system, and as such, I found myself interacting with these peers in settings where they were likely experiencing significant symptoms. Living in this cycle deprived me and my peers from developing insight into recovery because we did not see strong examples of it. Between 2017 and 2018, I began to be exposed to peer support through the outreach of a local peer-run Mental Health America affiliate in the local behavioral health unit where I was staying. Peer support broke the spell of these illusions by showing me that recovery is possible and that my peers were people who had taken creative approaches to interacting with the care that was being offered. Inspired by these peer supporters over the next year, having found what continues to this day to be a very stable condition in terms of my mental health, I decided to become a peer specialist. As a peer specialist, I was able to offer conversations about difficult topics, like the illusion that most people exist in a persistent state of disarray when they are in the midst of a major life disruption. This is not to discount the challenge of overcoming a lack of hope, but rather to say I was a person living and sharing my own hope about recovery. And as a peer specialist, I communicated with peers, with other peer specialists, and with clinicians and prescribers alike to advocate and raise up these peers' voices, to draw attention to strengths and to what recovery is for them, and to mitigate the cycles of a deficit-based understanding of a whole person's experience as they navigate the labyrinth of possibilities and disappointments. Peer support will forever be a turning point in my recovery journey because it gave me an opportunity to talk through the illusion of perpetual crisis and reconcile my resistance to care with the stories of peers who were taking a collaborative and interdisciplinary approach to seeking wellness.
Thank you, Angelique, for playing that video, and thank you for Matthew. And now I'd like to hand it over to Amber.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amber Martinez, and I am the Youth Peer Training Specialist at PeerTech and NYU's McSilver program. My role is to create programming for the site that will be up in the next coming months. And programming can include webinar topics or any additions that could better prepare clinics and peers provide the necessary services in their spaces. My background in peer support services comes after a few years of living through my own coming of age journey with added layers of a mental health diagnosis and a suicide attempt, along with everything else that happens to young people as they grow into themselves. As a person living with a diagnosis and as a person working in peer recovery services, I want to aid people in finding their voice and finding their storytelling prowess that they can nurture to help another person through a situation that often feels like they cannot get through or navigate through on their own. As peers, we are navigators into self-acceptance and show that dealing with mental health and wellness is not something that happens as an aside from everything within the human experience, instead as a naturally complementing thing that happens along with the human experience. I hope this webinar gives you all an opportunity to look into what peer services are and what they bring to the table. I'll pass it back to Rita.
Thank you so much, Amber. And I just wanted to kind of get us grounded in the purpose of today's webinar, which is what are peer support services, not just in one dimension, but what are peer support services across the lifespan. So we're going to hear a little bit about peer support in the adult world. We're going to hear a little bit about family peer support and youth peer support. We'll hear from folks that are going to talk about what credentials are needed and what peer and family run organizations are and how they can partner with peer run with mental health. I'll do it. The mental health outpatient treatment and rehabilitative services clinics. So before I move on, though, I just wanted to share a little story about my own journey. And there was a point in time when I had come through a number of hospitalizations, and I had the opportunity to meet Patty Duke Aston. And for those of you who don't know who Patty Duke was, she was an actress and she was a writer and she was somebody who was an advocate for mental health because she had been through a lot of that herself. And one of the things that she told me, and this kind of goes back to that whole idea of the clinician's illusion, she said to me, you know, it's very, very important that when you get better, that you go back and thank especially the care providers that helped you, because they so often get discouraged because they don't see when people get better. But when you go back, you give them hope that what they're doing makes a difference. And so I hope that what we're able to do, both through today's webinar and the work that we do through PeerTech, is to give a lot of hope that recovery is possible and that all of us working together, that we can make that so. So I'm going to move on to what is peer support in the adult world. And so I would like to begin with introducing Celia Brown. She's going to talk a little bit about peer support services. Now, Celia was the first peer specialist to hold a civil service position in the country. She was respected by virtually everyone that she worked with over the 30+ year career that she had, and she mentored many, many peer specialists and supervisors in the values of peer support and the values of advocacy. She was one of our most beloved peer specialist leaders. We lost her recently. She passed away in December, and she was my friend. So Angelique, if you could go ahead and play the video of Celia Brown talking about peer support services.
Hi, my name is Celia Brown. I'm the Regional Advocacy Specialist for the New York State Office of Mental Health. I'm also a member of the Center for Practice Innovation Stakeholders Board. Today I'm going to provide you with an introduction to peer services in New York State. Our learning objectives are understanding what peer specialists do, recognizing the benefits of involving peer specialists, summarizing how behavioral health organizations utilize peer specialists, and recognizing the importance of providing supervision to peer specialists. So how did this all start? Well, it started with the consumer survivor movement. The psychiatric survivors movement, more broadly known as the consumer survivor ex-patient movement, is a diverse association of individuals who either currently access mental health services known as consumers or service users, or who are survivors or interventions by psychiatry, or who are ex-patients of mental health services. The psychiatric survivors movement arose out of the civil rights movement of the late 1960s and early 1970s, and the personal histories of psychiatric abuse experienced by some ex-patients. The key texts in the intellectual development of the survivor movement, at least in the USA, was Judy Chamberlain's 1978 book, On Our Own, Patient-Controlled Alternatives to the Mental Health System. Judy was an ex-patient and co-founder of the Mental Patients Liberation Front. The values reflected in the movement have evolved over time and can be found in the principles of recovery today, and one of the foundations of recovery is peer support. So what is a peer specialist? Peer specialists are current or former recipients of mental health services who work as paraprofessionals providing direct services to recipients in emergency, inpatient, outpatient, community support programs, and residential settings. A peer specialist is an individual with lived recovery experience who has been trained and certified to help their peers gain hope and move forward in their recovery. So what is the role of peer specialist? It's building trust, sharing common experiences. It's identifying specific individual strategies for coping, healing, and growth. Providing benefits, counseling, and assisting peers in obtaining benefits. Convening and facilitating self-help groups and activities. Providing individual and system advocacy. And the most important goal is teaching people how to advocate for themselves. Helping peers create individual service plans based on recovery goals, using the WRAP plan, Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and other recovery-oriented tools to address wellness and challenges. Educating the treatment team on peer support perspectives. And finally, it provides linkages and referrals to services including mental health, medical, housing, employment, and education.
Thank you, Angelique. And I just wanted to mention that in the video, Celia spoke about the different tasks and roles of peer specialists. And in a moment, I'm going to just take a few minutes to cover the service components that are allowable, that are billable under the mental health outpatient treatment and rehabilitative services regulations. These are available in the OMH guidance document. It's down at the bottom here, but it's also available at the end of the webinar. We'll give links to you for you to be able to see this guidance document. There's great information. OMH has done an amazing job of well defining what peer support services will look like in the clinic settings. So these are the services that are billable under clinic: engagement, bridging, and transition support, self-advocacy, self-efficacy, and empowerment, peer recovery supports and peer counseling, community connections and natural supports, and pre-crisis and crisis support services. And I just wanted to give a little bit more information about the distinctions between natural peer support and peer support services. So I'm going to quote, he was a dear friend of mine. He was the founder of the National Association of Peer Supporters. Steve Harrington put it this way: simply put, Peer support occurs when people in a particular circumstance reach out to help others in the same or very similar circumstance. It is the act of a person or persons reaching out to others to help them deal with life challenges that makes peer support. So the main difference between natural occurring peer support, which happens everywhere with everybody, it's not just in mental health, it's not just with addictions, it's really with anybody who experiences challenges. The difference between that and what we're talking about here with peer support services is that this peer support services involve a specific training, job tasks like documentation, supervision, and a paycheck. And when people start getting paid for these services, it changes the relationship a little bit, but it's still equally valid and valuable to the people that are receiving those services. A few other resources that I wanted to provide for you. SAMHSA has got a series of infographics called The Value of Peer Services, and it goes into more detail about the kinds of services that are available through adult peer support. The National Practice Guidelines are available through the National Association of Peer Supporters, and this gives guidance in what peer support specialists do, and there's also guidance within that document for supervisors. And SAMHSA also has provided core competencies for peer specialists and peer workers. So certification and supervision are defined differently by each state, and you'll hear more about what that's like in New York here and a little bit later in the webinar. And so with that, I'd like to hand off to Nancy Craig.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much, Rita, for that. And thank you everyone who is participating on the webinar today. So my name is Nancy Craig Pierce. I got married, so I'm trying to remember that I have a new last name, but folks usually remember Nancy Craig. So I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about me. I started as a family peer advocate back in 1994. Before that, I met a wonderful mom who was like me, seeking answers. And she introduced me to this and helped me through those first few years of finding answers for our family and for my son. So since 94 to now, I have been blessed to be able to be a parent advisor, first for the Office of Mental Health. I worked in our home community-based waiver services for families and children and youth. And currently, I am the Director of Community and Systems Engagement with Families Together in New York State, which has been a wonderful opportunity to continue to work with the Office of Mental Health and the parent advisors. So that's just a little bit about me and my history and how I came to this work today. So we're going to talk a little bit about what family peer advocacy is, what family peer support, and what a family peer advocate. We have some resources, as Rita said, that are available to be able to help and explain a little bit to you. But for today's discussion, we all know that families in all child and youth serving systems and services benefit from access to family peer support services. This belief that and support from OMH to this great expansion of peer services in the outpatient treatment and rehabilitation services, or for short, just clinic. I'm old, I'll never remember all of that. But it's offered this ability to serve families when challenges first arise. If I hadn't met that parent when I did, I would still be fumbling around to be able to getting help for our families, or how to navigate those systems, or really, I didn't even know there was a thing called clinic when my son and our family needed the support. So family support is really one of the only services that we can access and receive, no matter your funding. So I just want to share a little bit about our definition that family peer support services are an array of formal and informal, as Rita spoke about. They're hard to kind of define sometimes. It's I like to kind of say that it's one mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, foster parent helping each other through the challenges that arise. And that we provide this to who are parents raising a child up to the age of 21, who have cross systems, complex navigation issues, and that it's structured on a strength-based. And it's this relationship, just as Rita spoke about in the adult peer specialist, it's the same type of thing in the family. There's that instant connection with someone else who has said, not to worry. I've done this, I've walked this path, and I will help you walk your path and help your family receive what they need to receive. And it's to support the family and enhance those skills that can promote those positive interactions. So for today's discussion, this is all about, what a family peer advocate can support with the clinic, and those are Medicaid billable services, right? So we're credentialed family peer advocates, and we're uniquely qualified to do that work because of our credential and our personal lived experience of parenting a child with similar needs. And the specialized training that we receive. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all that training that we receive as we go through the webinar today. So what are these services that family peer support offer to families? Well, there's outreach and information, right? We covered that in the adult peer specialist role. Same thing. People don't know about us. As I said, I was blessed to have met that mom that was raising a child a lot like mine. We engage, bridge, and transition support, self-advocacy, self-efficacy. When I was going through this with our own family, I really didn't understand the self-efficacy part. I just put one foot in front of the other. And, lots of times I tripped myself up. I had to learn new skills. I had to get some efficacy before I could actually use it and be empowered. Community connections and those natural supports. We know this world of mental health is not where 90% of the rest of the world lives. We need the community to help us, and we need natural supports because that's your friends get you through things. Not the system so much. System is there to support and to help and to teach, but long term, it's my friends who got me through this challenges and got our family through. Parent skill development. We call it skill development in the family world rather than skill building. Parents have skills. We believe everyone comes to this work with skills. Sometimes we just need to remember we got them. And then promoting effective family-driven practices. The work of family peer is delivered with through the lens of family care, family-driven care. We use SAMHSA's definition of that, and that definition talks a lot about that I am the primary decision maker for the role in my children's care, and that I also have responsibility to share those my knowledge with the systems to make sure that the system's responsive. It's a little bit about what the role of a family peer advocate is not. I'm not a file clerk. I'm not a babysitter. But I don't tell parents what to do. People laugh at this, but I think it's what we do. In the olden days, I used to say we're like the card catalog, but now with Google, and another analogy, I say we are the smorgasbord. We are the buffet. Family peer advocates have lots of knowledge, and it's to be laid out for the family to make those choices, right? We're a pseudo friend, right? I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of families, and you can't help but have that relationship. We're not a therapist, right? We've got clinics and we've got great therapists, and I've been blessed to be able to work with a lot of those. We're the spokesperson. We are not the spokesperson for families. Families have their own voice. Help me use it. Because when family peer is no longer needed in a family's life, then a family peer advocate, then I will need to speak and have those skills and knowledge. And we're not the only resource, right? We are the pass along to whoever else can help. And then what are we? I share my lived experience with the purpose of helping another family find hope. We build that empowerment, efficacy, take away the stigma and the judgment of that you did something wrong. And we empower caregivers to take an active role in their family's journey and healing. It is their life. So in family peer support, how we defined lived experience is that we're the parent, foster, adoptive, or primary caregiver. We're the person that is responsible, solely responsible for making sure that everything that my, raising of that child, I call them, the adults, who has significant social, emotional, developmental, substance use, medical, and or behavioral disability that has manifested itself before the age of 21. And that we're the caregiver who is primarily responsible for that day to day, right? We're the one who puts them to bed and gets them up, and that's the definition for Medicaid reimbursable services for family peer. So why would we want to have one mom help another mom, a grandma, a grandpa, a kinship, a foster family? It expands those possibilities to be involved at multiple levels and cultivates the community. It bridges successes of the past with the options for future continued success. My ability to move through the system somewhat successfully, I think we were pretty successful, has been able to help someone else move through that. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The stigma, the isolation, right? To teach me that if I, how to get out of my own way, and the world is not going to hurt us anymore with that isolation. Isolation doesn't help anybody. And it facilitates this knowledge, understanding, connections to services. My job is to be that smorgasbord, lay it all out, tell the family everything that their options are, and then to help them pick the option, right? To talk it through, to be a good sounding board from someone who has gone through that. Gain skills in my parenting. My son did not come with a manual. I don't know if it would have made a difference anyhow, but he was my third child. He was different. I had to learn to parent differently. I had to learn to advocate for him and help him learn to advocate for himself. It increases my self-efficacy. We talked a little bit about that. Family peer, listen without judgment, because someone listened to us without judgment. And then we have this opportunity for caregivers to relate and connect. I can build a community of people who are like me. I can build my own natural supports who I can go to help through all of this. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it off to Robbie now, who's going to talk a lot about youth peer, which is so exciting.
Thanks, Nancy. Hey, everybody. My name is Robbie Lettieri. I am the Youth Peer Services, Director of Youth Training. Sorry, I got my title. I just got a new title. Director of Youth Training at Families Together in New York State. So I actually came into this work in the adult peer community. I have experience as a young person within systems. I was physically ill. I had a brain surgery that saved my life when I was 16. And then after I had that surgery that saved my life, I didn't feel the way that I wanted to, or the way that I thought that I would. And that started my involvement in the mental health system as a young person and into my adult life. After I was introduced to the adult community and I began working in the adult community, I was introduced to the youth peer community. And that completely rocked my world, because I never had that experience as a young person to really engage with other young people who were like me. When I was introduced to the adult community, it was awesome because I felt like I could just be myself. I could talk about things without, having the fear of repercussions from having a clinician hear these things. And I could just be honest. And I felt like there were other people who understood me. But in all my time throughout the systems, I was really just a young person sitting in a hospital bed with doctors coming in and talking to my parents, and they were just addressing my physical ailments or later on my emotional distress. And so the youth peer community really gave me community, and it gave me a sense of identity and purpose. So youth peer services are extremely unique, and so I'm really excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about them today. That's me. Hi. Alrighty. So looking at what makes youth peer support Medicaid billable, there are 5 different categories. So the first one, and I would say that we are constantly working to build skills. We are, as youth peer advocates, we are constantly working to achieve a goal that the young person has identified. So we want to work on skill building. We want to coach or mentor. We offer engagement, bridging, and transition support. So we offer a lot of different community integration. We can't necessarily empower a young person, but we can be that person that is there to show them that hopefully they can empower themselves. And then we are also there to kind of create a support network for them within their community. And any of those 5 categories of youth peer services qualify for Medicaid billing. Looking at what makes youth peer support so unique is the fact that it really is youth guided. We want to hear directly from the young person. We aren't going in there as the experts over the young person's life saying that we know what's best for them. We want to hear what they have to say and what they're feeling. We partner with them. We're not going to go into a meeting and speak on their behalf. We're going to brainstorm with them to say, okay, so we're going to meet with your treatment team. What are some things that you want to touch on? What are some questions that you need answered? And we're really just there to support them so that they can utilize their own voice. Youth peer support is not a cookie cutter approach. We are extremely individualized, and so we want to promote that independent recovery. Being that a youth peer advocate has their own lived experience, we can strategically share that experience in order to emotionally support them and also potentially offer some guidance along the way as needed. So that's where the mentoring comes in. Again, we promote that advocacy and helping them to find their voice. We are culturally curious, we're culturally humble. We value culture and we value differences. We want to make those connections within their community so that we aren't the only one that is there to support them, because God forbid we aren't around one day. Well, that's all right. I'm not here, but you have the 7 other people and 7 other organizations that can support you right now. Again, we're individualized, and similar to family and adult peer services, we are strengths-based. So the role of a YPA, I feel like right now, there's a lot of misconceptions about what YPAs should or should not be doing. So just to start out with what we are not, we aren't there to tell the young people what to do. We're not there to police them. We're not there to be their chauffeur or drive them from place to place within the community. We're not there to speak on behalf of the young person. And we're not there to be the only voice or the only person that can speak on behalf of that young person. However, we are there to really build hope and foster a sense of community, foster a sense of belonging. We are there to support them in finding their own purpose and what they want in life. We are there to destigmatize human experiences. So often, I know from my time in the system, I felt like there was something wrong with me simply because I didn't feel the way that people were telling me that I was supposed to feel. And when I met other peers, it was like, hey, it's just a human experience. It's all right. And it sounds so simple, but it was really profound and it impacted me greatly. As a youth peer advocate, we really promote that inclusion. Nothing about us without us. If there is a youth voice, or if there is a service, or if there is an event, there is anything regarding young people, we want young people to be present, and we are going to make sure that young people's voices are heard. We promote that individualized support, and we empower or we try to support young people in order to take an active role in their healing journey. So looking at lived experience for youth peer advocates, it is for anyone who has been involved in a child serving system, or has experienced a traumatic life event as a young person. So looking at the child serving systems, some of those might include, mental health, child welfare, juvenile justice, healthcare needs, criminal justice, OPWDD, etc. And so a young person is anyone who is under the age of 18 or up to the age of 30. So a YPA can be anyone from 18 to 30 years old. So youth peer support, I can sit here for hours on end telling you why you should hire YPAs. But being that we are kind of crunched on time, YPAs, we lead to a higher number of youth engagement within organizations. When there is a young person supporting another young person, young people are more apt to go to them for support. Young people are also much more likely to seek support and to open up and share of experiences with other people who are within that similar age demographic and share that youth culture with them, as opposed to going to an adult clinician. YPAs also work collaboratively with treatment teams, so it's not like they're just out there rogue. They are eyes and ears on the ground, really supporting the young people to get their voices heard on a larger scale within the organization. It develops a support network and a community engagement for young people. It allows for the opportunity for young people to really be understood and to form these connections where they have that sense of community and where they have that sense of belonging. And again, it really helps to fight against that stigma, that discrimination, and any kind of feelings of isolation, because it shows that they aren't alone in their struggles, and that just because they're struggling right now, that doesn't mean that that's the end of the road. And that these YPAs can really offer hope and say, hey, you might be struggling right now, but I'm going to be with you until you're not struggling anymore, and I can't wait to keep watching you fly. So YPAs also support young people in gaining skills, knowledge, and self-esteem. We increase that hope in the fact that recovery is possible, that healing is possible. And we also really try to support them in building their own confidence. And one, by showing them that they aren't alone in their struggles, but also by supporting them in building those skills and reaching those goals that they are identifying on a personal level. So really quickly, I'm going to go over what are the credentialing requirements for the YPA and FPA credentials. So here at Families Together in New York State, we are the credentialing body for both the youth and family peer advocate credentials. And we work closely with CTAC and now PeerTAC to develop ongoing continuing education and technical assistance to peer run as well as community run and just any place where peers are employed throughout New York State, specifically youth and family peers. So why a credential? It supports uniform competency, that code of ethics that everyone has to sign on their application. It shows them what it is that they are supposed to be doing. It shows them how it's not necessarily a tool that shows them what can happen if they do something wrong. It's more so something that will protect you and say, hey, this is your role, this is not your role. Let's work together so that we're offering the same service across the board. It promotes leadership and professionalism, and it expands reimbursement options, specifically through Medicaid billing. And hopefully more insurance organizations or insurance companies will provide reimbursement opportunities for peer services in the future. So for the YPA requirements, and so just to preface that we will be sending out a resource called the 6 Steps to Obtaining Your Professional Credential for both the youth and family peer credentials. But again, just very quickly, to reach that provisional credential, you have to have that lived experience. You need to complete the level 1 training. You need to be between the ages of 18 and 30 years old, and then you have to fill out the application. That application will have a number of different things that you have to complete within it, but you can read this and I can also share with you more later on. And then for that professional credential, you still have to have that lived experience. You still have to be between the ages of 18 and 30, but you have to then complete the level 2 online, as well as the level 2 virtual, the virtual training, as well as the coaching calls. You will have to complete another application. However, this application is different because with the provisional, you have to complete 2 letters of recommendation, whereas for the professional, you only need 1, but that 1 recommendation letter needs to come from your direct supervisor. You also need to include an attachment that states your working experience hours, which is a minimum of 600 hours. And then every 2 years, you have to submit a continuing education and renewal form, an application that states you have at least 20 hours of continuing ed. Same spiel for the FPA credential. The main differences for the FPA professional credential is that you, rather than 600 hours, you have to have at least 1,000 hours of working experience. And the level 2 training is a little bit lengthier for the PEP training. These are our contact information, or the contact information for my supervisor, Carrie Ann Rollier, the Director of Workforce Development, and my contact info for Youth Peer Advocate credentialing. And I am now going to hand it over to M. Wasserman.
Hi all, and thank you, Robbie. So my name is M. Wasserman. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a psychiatric survivor. I'm a student, a New York certified peer specialist, and I come to you today as an OMH trainer and New York Peer Specialist Certification Board Coordinator with the Mental Health Empowerment Project. Thanks to Celia's beautiful tribute, we've heard, and a lot of people talking about adult peer services. We've heard a lot about what peer support is. I'm here to talk with you about credentialing. So okay, that worked. All right, so the New York Peer Specialist Certification Board officially began to meet in 2015 in order to issue the credential. The Mental Health Empowerment Project was awarded the contract to administer support to the board beginning in January 2018. And I say that because certification in adult peer services involves the working between distinct agencies. So the Academy of Peer Services is where we offer the training, The certification board ensures that the values are intact in peer services and they make ultimate decisions, and the Mental Health Empowerment Project advises and provides administration to the board. So what is certification? It identifies the minimum standards for training and experience for adult peer specialists, promoting a skilled workforce, identifying professionals who are specialists in their field, and designed to recognize the skills and experience acquired by peers, qualifying them to support others in their recovery journey. Certification requires documentation of education, training, work experience. So for the education portion, we require that everyone has at least a high school diploma or equivalency, so a GED. Our training, again, with the Academy of Peer Services, there's 13 core courses. Talk a little bit about that in a minute. And work experience. We'll talk about that again in a second. So programs utilizing certified professionals to provide peer support services may be qualified to bill Medicaid, and that's how the credentialing came to be. By becoming a New York certified peer specialist, you're recognized as a qualified professional working with individuals in the mental health system based on the shared experience paradigm. All right, get to the next slide. So there are two types of certification currently. The NYCPS-P is the provisional certification that requires your high school diploma or equivalency, the 13 core APS courses, through reference letters who can speak to you and your abilities as a peer specialist, have you disclose your recovery journey to others, things like that. Lived experience, that's a really vague requirement, but basically, have you been through trauma? Do you identify as being in recovery? Have you been through the mental health system? There's many ways that you can meet this this objective here, and you have to be over 18 years of age. Now, the standard or full certification, there really only is one difference between the provisional and the standard certification. As a peer specialist, you can do the same work with a provisional that you can with a standard. The standard just outlines that you've had work experience. So the requirements for a standard certification are the same as provisional, with an additional 15 hours of training. So that can be satisfied through the Academy of Peer Services, their continuing education courses, and 2,000 hours of documented work experience. And when you apply, you will need a reference letter from your current employer documenting that you have that experience and it meets the credentialing requirements. Now, I'm not going too much into what some of these standards are because we have a consulting call coming up, and I know time is sensitive today. But there are renewal standards. You're not, one and done when you've done the certification. Renewal is every 2 years. You will need 10 hours per year of continuing education. And that means each time you recertify, you will have 20 hours of continuing education per renewal. So the easiest way to meet that need is by visiting the Academy of Peer Services. And there are other avenues, like certain webinars and conferences do offer continuing education units. We are updating our, so I'll just say this, we're updating our website. So if you go to www.nypeerspecialist.org, you can find everything you need about certification, but updates are coming. We'll have, more information on specialty tracks and different aspects of the certification process. But you are always welcome to call us or email us or contact us if you have questions about your certification, how to become certified. If you are currently certified and wondering about your status, is my certification lapsing? Is it up for renewal? You're welcome to contact us. You can email us at info@nypeerspecialist.org. And again, all of this information is on our website currently. It will be updated to be more user-friendly. And we will be at the next consulting call with PeerTech to answer any additional questions, and we'll have more information for you then as well. So thanks for having me. I'm going to pass it along to Rebecca and Taina.
Thank you, Em.
Thank you, Em.
So we're up, Taina. What are peer-run organizations? And
yes,
we have a little intro. So myself and Taina are here with you today. I'm the director of the Wellness Collaborative of New York Independent Practice Association, so WCNY IPA. And I'm here, Taina. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Taina Lang. I am the Chief Executive Officer to the largest peer-run organization in New York State called Baltic Street Advocacy, Employment, and Housing, which has been in service to the New York State community, I want to say a little over 40 years. I'm proud to represent such an amazing peer-run organization for now 21 years. So let's jump into what is a peer-run organization? This definition that the National Council brings up is obviously, peer-run organizations, are run by individuals that have lived shared mental health, substance use, and other related, life experiences. Our organizations are often founded and operated by individuals that have lived through mental health systems, right? Or trauma systems, right? So, what individuals that come into these organizations usually working with individuals that are going to offer mutual support, offer resources, and often seek to assist those within the communities that often have shared lived experiences. I do want to just make a quick highlight that the National Council did recognize that peer-run organizations in the last 3 decades, have created various of groundbreaking new models such as crisis peer interventions, bridging, and wellness support services, such as the RAP plan, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and the 8 dimensions of wellness that we often utilize from Sancha's model. And Baltic actually is the primary standpoint that we use for services is the 8 dimensions of wellness. So it's been absolutely amazing for all the individuals that we service. Okay. So how can peer-run organizations collaborate? One of the things that we always say is provide training and education. Here we can offer supports, obviously, such as, topics as recovery-oriented practices, trauma-informed care, cultural humility, peer supports in, in providing services and what they are, right? Often individuals believe that, peers are put in a particular setting to take on extra work of social workers. They are not, they are not clinicians. We do not diagnose. We are not the fill-in social worker for the individuals. This is a collaborative, mutual relationship that individuals are built on because of mutuality of lived experience. So, often we get the questions of, can they take them to the SSI appointments? Only if the participant requests it, right? We do fill out certain applications like the HRA 2010E for housing, but again, we don't go in and we don't do other, we don't go, pardon me, my phone is like totally ringing in the middle of this. We don't do things of in placement of social work, activities or clinical activities. Okay. So we often encourage and recovery-based oriented services. And we also maintain the fidelity and the principles of peer support within the medical settings.
I think too, Taina, right? Providing training and education is a focus of our IPA and the collective membership as well. One of our great partners, and Em just spoke to it, is Mental Health Empowerment Project, and they offer that variety of training and opportunities, not only for the actual organizations as an outpatient treatment, but also for the individual staff, for also that support and education for the peers as part of your program. We'll talk a little bit more about the opportunity to contracting, and we're going to have a separate webinar around that subject matter. Saw a question come up in the chat as well. But that foundation of understanding and providing training and education is a key piece of collaborating with any of our organizations.
Absolutely. So
the next one being peer support services. I have to leave this to you, Taina. Your organization is an expert in this and the variety of opportunities for people to engage with peers.
Yes, so peer support services, literally what Baltic does, we have such an array of services that we provide. There are bridging services. And for those that do not know what bridging services are, these are individuals that are actually inpatient, ready to transition within communities. Our work here is connecting individuals with a peer while they are recovering in treatment within the medical hospital state. And what ends up happening is that when they connect with our peers start the conversation of what does it look like outside of the hospital for them, right? What does recovery look like? What are their immediate environmental needs? Maybe it's important for this person to have a synagogue near a 5-mile radius, their medical treatment, their outpatient treatment, maybe a library, maybe a park. Right. And when individuals get ready to transition out into that community, the peer works with this individual to look at the community of choice. And again, it's all focused and centered on that individual. We have education, supported education. We have vocational services that we provide. We provide obviously peer support services, which could be an array of different varieties of from benefit seeking, housing, even legal, because of course we have an influx of individuals that are coming from other countries into New York City. So we've been assisting those individuals, food deserts, and addressing where to get healthy meals, where are the local pantries. So we do an array and eclectic array of services. We have an amazing self-help program, geriatrics program, and again, each area all focuses on individuals' needs and what it means to them for their own recovery. So it's not guided by a clinician. It's not guided by the social workers, but by the individuals themselves.
And we see peer support services as members of that entire multidisciplinary team, right? So it's the place at the table to not only ensure that individuals who are already in care or want to get clinical treatment, they have that opportunity to engage with a peer and get that variety of services and know what their options, what their rights are, but then also support them throughout whatever their recovery journey is along those 8 dimensions as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so community outreach and engagement is actually one of my favorite parts, you know, as I want to say as a lifelong advocate. Here we can teach communities of the services that are within their communities. A lot of individuals don't even know that they have amazing programs like Baltic Street within their community reaches, right? Sometimes, you know, we find it where, you know, we find ourselves in health fairs and community events. We often also host several community events so that individuals know that we're just right at the doorsteps for them, right? So, you know, and of course, also educating people of resources, which I think, especially if we can all agree after COVID, we have seen a large influx of individuals with substance use, you know, where can they get resources? And so we'll be able to provide these type of services for individuals, and also give out much needed PPEs, because of course we are still in COVID, right? We still have, you know, influxes, especially in Brooklyn, of where there are hotspots. So we still offer these type of services as well within the communities. So advocacy and policy changing. Often individuals do not think that advocate peers are not at the footsteps of Albany, but that is not certain, right? So as a matter of fact, a bit of a cheap plug, you know, next week is going to be our, you know, our legislative day with MHOTRS, you know, so if you have an opportunity to be there, please do speak to your government officials about advocacy and policy changings that are most important, that are affecting individuals with mental health lived experiences. So that is one thing that we definitely, inspire for all. Our organization definitely believes that we always have to have system improvements, better ways to support individuals that are seeking services, access to services, and of course, you know, individuals that drive this. My organization definitely does drive the meaning of change in both local, state, and national levels, to really discuss that peer services must be at the table in every step of the way at every level of policy.
This is especially important for the IPA. So our Wellness Collaborative of New York, we are the only genuine statewide peer-run collective. And really the group came together to leverage that expertise in ensuring that members can share their key practices. They can historically advance the fidelity to providing peer support, and then get a greater understanding of the needs and gaps across our community. This is especially important for advocacy and policy change. And I think Robbie said it earlier, I've heard it for so long now that we want nothing about us without us. But the reality is that for every other clinical environment or ability to access an individual who has been struggling with serious mental illness, we've got to be able to have a peer at the table so we can walk that walk as well, along with these individuals that want that extra support. At the end of the day, we also can look at the research and the data that shows there's a cost saving to clients having opportunities to access resources that they're interested in to meet their own personal needs. We're hearing a lot around social determinants of health, and this is a key piece of that collaboration. It's also been policy changes, we know, to drive new opportunities for billable services with peers, and that is a key piece of having the professional certification as well.
So of course, overall, you know, peer-run organizations absolutely do play an important role in the mental health and substance use landscape. We do provide a valuable and unique service that offers recovery in such a unique way, and it's proven to work countless time and time again. By partnering with a peer-run organization, definitely programs can better service the needs of the individuals that they're serving, and of course, create a synergy with both your program and our, you know, peer-run organization for that individual's recovery.
I love that. And it goes to say, I think I wrote when I was thinking about this, how do peer run organizations collaborate with the outpatient treatment? I hear all the time that we want these person-centered approaches, and there is nothing that speaks to person-centered more than having a peer available to support their needs throughout their process of wellness. That comes with that culture shift that we've got to be able to say, okay, at the ground level, we're going to do the training and education. We're going to better understand what's available for individuals, and then we're going to provide that, and then have that engagement and treatment, those transition options available to support individuals. And then moving from that management of constant crisis, but also to that long-term care. And that's really what that peer support is about, is people providing true support to another individual who has lived experience and can say, there is hope on the other side of this. And that is the greatest thing that we all know we can have, is hope at the end of the day for our own wellness, how we treat ourselves and other individuals. And that is the foundation of this work.
And how amazing if you help an individual go from a person that was a recipient of receiving services to now is the peer at the table that is now providing support for the next person. So again, it's the each one teach one, right? And I think it's I think it's absolutely amazing.
So we now turn it back over to Nancy, but our contact information is included at the end of the slide deck, and please feel free to reach out to both Taina or myself. Both have phenomenal websites with lots of resources as well, and I'll drop that in the chat for everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks a lot. I'm going to go really, really fast because we are really pushing time for today. I wanted to be able to speak a little bit about the family-run organizations and the community-based organizations in New York State for that are available and ready to serve the clinic population and the families and young people that are there. In New York, we have 8 family-run organizations across the state. We have a wonderful directory that is on Families Together's website under the resource tab. We update that every quarter with contact information and everything that you're going to need to be able to reach out. We have parent advisors, and we're going to have that as a resource as well. The parent advisors, we have 10 parent advisors across the state, 2 in each OMH region that work in partnership. We'll have their contact information. The 67 community-based family support programs that are in the directory, along with the 8 family-run organizations, are there for the distinct purpose to make sure that families have, as I spoke about a little earlier, the connection with another family member. And a majority of those family-run organizations also have a peer, a youth peer component to their organization as well. And to keep that really, really close and fast, I'm going to pass it back to Rita.
Thanks so much, Nancy. So in summary, what we talked about today are what is peer support, what are peer support services across the lifespan. So we talked about adult peer support services, family, youth, what the credentials are that are needed, and what are the peer and family run organizations. So we didn't get a lot of questions in the chat, but we really want to make sure that you know that we're having a second session a week from today at the same time to have more of an extended dialogue, more of a listening session, if you will. If you have things that you want to ask the presenters, or if you have things you want to tell the presenters, they're all going to be available again next week. And we'll also be joined by Carrie Ann Rollier, who's with Families Together about family peer support. So they're all going to be available next week to take questions and to listen. So that's the consultation. The format for next week is that we'll include that opportunity in breakout sessions with each of the presenters. And we really want to hear from you. So if you come next week, that's your opportunity to tell us at PeerTech some of the things that you're looking for, some of the things that you're hoping that we'll be able to provide over the course of time as we start to grow. We have 3 more sessions that are coming up beyond that consultation. Our next webinar proper is going to be on recruiting, hiring, and onboarding. That's on March 9th. Creating a culture of success, which is going to be on March 23rd. and a session on supervision, which is going to be on April 13th. And each of those comes with its own next week consultation session with the presenters. This session is being recorded and it will be available tomorrow on the PeerTac site. There are continuing education credits available for the New York Certified Peer Specialist. You can get that by logging into the Academy of Peer Services, look for the PeerTac session, and all you'll have to do at this point is take the test and the course evaluation, and you'll be able to get a certificate of credit. If you're a youth peer advocate or a family peer advocate, just save the email you receive from this event to confirm your attendance, and you'll submit that when you submit your renewal application. We have a number of resources that are available. We have a frequently asked questions page. We have the guidance document from OMH on peer support services in the clinics. And we now have a webinar resource specific to this webinar that lists many of the resources that were mentioned today, as well as many others. We hope you'll look into that. That will also be, those will all be posted on the PeerTac website. Also hope that you'll take our survey. We have a survey. If you're a clinic leader, we really want to hear from you to find out more about what your needs are, what we can do to help to provide training or consultation for you. This REDCap site is where you can take our survey. And I just really want to give a big thank you, shout out to Robbie, to Nancy, to Taina, to Em, to Rebecca. And Carrie Ann will be joining us next week in the consultation session. And here's how you get a hold of us. The website is there, peertac.org. Reach us by email at info@peertac.org. You can join our listserv. That is also available if you go to the website, and the frequently asked questions document is there as well. I want to thank my colleagues at PeerTac. It's been a great project to be working on. I'm so happy to be here. You'll see that the survey on peer support services is now in the chat. And again, I just really want to thank all of you for coming today. And I want to thank OMH for sponsoring us. Thank you all.